This is the top 10 worst silent films. I don't expect these reviews will be as lengthy or interesting as the other videos. This is just more a chance for me to cover some films that didn't make the cut and to have a bit of fun explaining why. The reason that this video is a bit late, and I expect my videos will take a little longer in general, I'll try not to do that. I'm trying to keep videos monthly, but that's become a bit difficult recently. I've been very busy working on a sitcom pilot. There's a fundraiser for that, if anyone is interested. I'm sure that there'll be more content regarding that in the future. But yeah, that's eating up a lot of my time, so it's harder to do these videos at the moment. But anyway, let's get into the top 10 worst silent films. So anything before 1930 is my kind of rule. At number 10, we have New York Subway. So this is a 1905 film, and it's basically just a camera filming a subway journey. I wouldn't call this a particularly bad film, it's just not as interesting as some other films from this time period, so it didn't make the cut. The main letdown really is just that most of the film is just in a tunnel. The best bit of it is seeing the people on the platforms, seeing that little bit of history. But when you're just seeing a tunnel, I mean that tunnel, it looks the same as tunnels now. Not particularly interesting. At number 9, we have Flying Elephants, a Laurel and Hardy film. I've talked about lots of Laurel and Hardy. I've been giving them nothing but praise on my series, but this one is just not very good. It's got a frankly terrible production quality. The whole thing looks like a home video from the 1910s. Yeah, they literally just took out some shitty camera and took it to a field and were like, we're in the Stone Ages. Buster Keaton sort of did this in his Free Ages film. His was way better. The production quality was interesting. You know, he had miniatures and things to just bring life to it. This is just inseparable from a boring field. Biggest letdown is the characters. You know, you have Laurel and Hardy in the same film, and yet their chemistry is just not really there yet. There's a sort of familiar style of comedy going on in terms of what they're playing, their slapstick style. But the chemistry isn't there, the duo aren't there, and that really lets it down. And on the note of slapstick, it's literally just like, oh, he's been bonked on the head, he's fell over. It's nothing that Chaplin and Keaton hadn't done at this point, and this is just a way worse version of it. This is what I imagine silent slapstick films are like to people who don't like silent slapstick films. The plot itself is really uninteresting, it's just them all fighting for a girl. Like, I don't really care. That could be funny if it was executed well, but it's just really typical. If you want a good Laurel and Hardy film, watch pretty much any other Laurel and Hardy film. If you want a good slapstick comedy film from this sort of time period, then go for a Chaplin or a Keaton. If you want a slapstick comedy film set in the Stone Ages, then just watch Free Ages by Buster Keaton. There's no reason to watch this. At number 8, we have Newark Athlete. We're going back to the Thomas Edison era. So this film, it's under 12 seconds and it's just a boy throwing some bats. What I find underwhelming about this film is it's called Newark Athlete, but he's not particularly athletic. Like, anyone can throw some maracas about. And I know that you can sort of say like, okay, this is such early days for films, you know, they're just trying to get used to cameras, they're just figuring stuff out. Very true, but there are films from this sort of time period that document things like the human form or the animal form, or just the everyday world. There's not really much point in this one. The historical relevance does not really save it. It's just some kid waving around some sticks. At number 7, we have Man Walking Around a Corner. Now, my complaints with this film is, 1, the shot. Okay, yeah, you did get a man walking around a corner, but the shot doesn't particularly capture the corner. There's no reason for the corner. It's just like, oh, this is what we happen to get. There's no intention with this. We're not showing the corner in a particularly exciting way. Like, the shot itself is just a flat wall. It's a man walking in front of a house. Where's the corner bit that I've been... You know, I expect to see the corner in some capacity. The quality just isn't very good. I give it a pass because, yeah, very early days, but it still lets it down on an enjoyment level. It's just pointless. Like, it's the same as Newark Athlete. If you're gonna film something, why not film something interesting? This is not interesting, and so to me, a bad film from this time. At number 6, we have The Black Pirate. This film stars Douglas Fairbanks, who was a pretty prominent film star of the silent era. He was the inspiration for the silent film star in The Artist. When you look at this film as a whole, it's a pretty bad Hollywood production. It's not offensively bad, it's not badly made in any way. It's just really Hollywood. It's all just sets and good-looking people and the occasional stunt and the, oh, save the girl, avenge my father. It's all so boring, it's all so typical. Yeah, no interesting filmic decisions, all bland as possible. Douglas Fairbanks is inherently a pretty cool protagonist, I suppose. He's just like got that film star look. That's probably where most of my interest for this film comes from. It's just that this is the guy who inspired the character in The Artist. So I like that element of it, but as an actor really, I don't think there's much to him apart from his look. Something I will commend this film for is its use of two-strip colour. One of the earliest films to make use of Technicolor, but this is two-strip Technicolor, so it's not as advanced as three-strip Technicolor, which we see in other films later on. Two-strip just does not look that good. Because there's just such little variety in the colours, it makes things look very bland and washed out. It's not really a good alternative to black and white. Despite there being colour, it still feels like there's more complexity in the depth of colour colour in the black and white. There's more sort of shades of grey. Again, a typical Hollywood decision being like, oh, let's jump on this new technology. Even though it doesn't really look good, we're just going to be like, we're Hollywood. At number 5, we have the Accordion Player. Now, okay, this film is really old, so it is maybe a little unfair to criticise its production quality. But that being said, this is barely even a film. It's more like a slideshow of pictures. And other films from this time were kind of like that too. But this one is really obvious. It really doesn't feel like a flowing sequence. It just feels like, oh, there's a picture, there's a picture, there's a picture. Compared to something like a Buffalo Running, which is like a tracking shot, this is just a still, boring accordion player. Just not a very good quality film, and there are better films to see from this time period. At number 4, we have... Okay, I'm not going to say that one. Main criticism for this film is it is just offensive. It uses blackface in a way that ridicules black people, and black people are the punchline of the joke in this film. So the whole thing is, this black guy is stealing firewood from a white farmer. The white farmer finds out, so he plants a stick of dynamite in the firewood, and the whole joke is like, look, the black guy is going to take the dynamite, take it home, put it on his fire and blow up himself and blow everything up. That's the joke. I don't think that joke gets away with just, oh, it's from a different time. It's just a really unfunny and morbid joke. And you know, there have been other racist films that I've talked about. This film is definitely one of the more offensive ones I've ever seen. And also, it's just not well made. There's no interesting filmic qualities about this. It's just two simple theatre backdrop sets. It's hard to actually get into it and engage with it. So, you know, if you do want to think about like, oh, it's such an old film, it's a different time period. Even with that mindset, this film is not good anyway. Racist, badly made, no reason to like this. At number 3, we have The Wizard of Oz. Not The Wizard of Oz, Larry Simone's Wizard of Oz. So, most people know the Victor Fleming Wizard of Oz. This one comes a bit earlier, and it's a silent film, and I just don't like the way that this one is realised so well. It feels like it's adapted a lot more literally from the book. The whole opening is literally like a granddad reading the story to his kid, so it immediately makes you aware that this is a story and like a fairy tale book. But the story of this itself, it spends a lot of time focusing on the politics of the land of Oz, all the kings and queens and stuff like that, and I don't want to constantly compare this to the 1939 version, but it's so much better starting the story from Dorothy's perspective and, you know, going on that journey with her. I don't really care about politics in a make-believe land. It's so boring, and it takes so long to actually get into all the Dorothy stuff. On the note of Dorothy, the girl who played Dorothy here, she's alright, she's fine, she's solid, I enjoyed her. But yeah, nothing on Judy Garland. Judy Garland, like, is amazing. This one is just like, oh yeah, you were good. Also, both actors are working in very different mediums, of course. It was great seeing a young Oliver Hardy. That was a little treat for me. The slapstick comedy in this is overall pretty pointless. It just feels like time wasting, like all these really mediocre comedy routines that just pause the story. 90% of the time, I was just like, come on, move it along. I don't care about this slapstick bullshit. The balance isn't there like it is in Chaplin's films, for example. There's not really a lot to like about this. The art style is sometimes sort of interesting, but as a whole, nothing special. Plot just so underwhelming. I don't care about the politics and the different like fleshing out the different characters in the world. I want to see Dorothy go on an adventure to meet the Wizard of Oz. There are rumours that this film actually led to Larry Simone's death 3 years later. Very stressful film for him to make, and a big box office failure which sort of wiped out his career. It is kind of interesting that both Wizard of Oz films have all these morbid mysteries surrounding them. At number 2, we have Die Nibelungen Siegfried. Probably fucked that name up. So this is a Fritz Lang film. I've talked about Fritz Lang on my series before. He's done some pretty incredible films, including Metropolis. But I'm sorry, this film is so fucking boring. God, it's just a really, really long, slow German fairy tale. I really hate it. I have a question for Germany right now. Is this really the best historical, like, fairy tale you guys have got? This is so boring. It's like watching EastEnders with swords. Visually, this film can be interesting. It's got a quite distinctive, foggy, yellow, hazy aesthetic going on, and I really like that look. But it's not enough to save the film overall. And there's a lot of really cool, interesting miniatures. Like, overall, the world it builds, it's really charming and it's really fantastical. I like all that. Fritz Lang's general direction and style with this film, I'm quite into, but everything else is just abysmal. The dragon effects, okay. Cool that it's practical, cool that it's big, kind of impressive, but looks pretty shit and stupid. I think this could have looked good if they just sort of hid it in the shadows more or just shot it from certain angles, and the way that they shot it, it just looked goofy. Special effects are certainly a prominent feature of Metropolis. They're also pretty good in here. I really like the dream sequence. The way that that's put together is really satisfying. It's just the overall plot and the really long runtime and the characters. I just did not care about a single character. I could not give a shit if any of these people died. I like, I did not care. Super boring, and that just lets down everything that was good about it. With Metropolis, I was really into the characters. I really cared about all the twists and turns. To summarize, good filmmaking overall, but not nearly half enough to engage me throughout the whole film. At number 1, we have The Lucky Dog. This feels wrong, but I have to do it. This is the first Stan and Ollie appearance, and it sucks. Both actors are being utilised completely wrong. Ollie is like a gangster figure. There's none of that charming sincerity that you see in his later performances. Stan is still the sort of dumb one, but really riding off Buster Keaton, just ripping him off directly and doing it less well. If this was the only Stan film I'd seen, then I would literally just be like, oh, he's a Buster Keaton ripoff. You can barely even call this a Laura Hardy. Not only do you not have that chemistry fundamentally, they're just barely on screen together anyway. They're in the same film, but you barely see them together. That golden dynamic that I know and love. Stan doesn't feel like Stan, especially with that makeup. Ollie's just a one-dimensional gangster. Aside from that major disappointment, the film is just distractingly low budget and clearly made with no experience. Mainly with just the film speed. The person who made this clearly shot it all wrong, the speed is all off. It's trying to go for that slightly sped up look that kind of works with slapstick comedy stuff, but they've got it all wrong and it's going way too fast to a point where it's not funny, it's too silly and too hard to follow, meaning that I can't appreciate any of the performances or engage in the story. The jokes were nothing special, just your typical surface level slapstick. He got bonked on the head, he fell over, he slipped. This is barely even Laura Hardy. It's just a crap film that happens to have both of them in it. So yeah, that's my top 10 worst films of the Sun era. I know this isn't quite what we're used to, but I hope it was a welcome change, and don't you worry about that, because top 10 films of 1931 and 1932 coming very soon. Thank you for watching.